All right, hello everybody. Oh, there. Hi. Check. 1, 2, 1, 2. That I can just talk out of my mouth full. Hello, I'm Becca. Welcome to the Evolution Asian American Arts Festival. Yay! Oh my gosh. So special thank you to our host, Looking Glass Theater, and this is all produced by the AAAC, the Asian American Arts Chicago. I'm Becca. I am your MC for this section of the show. I'll be here all today, so if you stick around for the whole day, you'll probably get sick of me in the best way. Are you enjoying the festival, which just started? Yes, we've got over 90 performers and almost 30 vendors across 2 days to welcome API Heritage Month with arts and culture. And AAAC is a 501c3 not-for-profit organization, and every donation you make to us supports Asian American creativity and excellence. So to donate, you can scan the QR codes that are all around the building or drop your change into the donation box at the door. Every amount makes the difference, so thank you so much. And to learn more about the performers, vendors, and artists, go to our website, AAAC.art. Yes, .art. And you can tip the performers, tip the bartender, and thank us and support the arts. So just make sure your phones are to silent, please, just so it doesn't interrupt, as things will be occurring shortly. So thank you so much. And to get us started for our spoken word showcase, we have the wonderful, amazing Sophia Javed. Just a little bit about Sophia. She is a comedian, storyteller, and writer, and her humor is inspired by her experience as a brown woman in America, her love of languages, and a lifetime of never fitting in. So go ahead and give a warm welcome to Sophia, everybody!
Hello, I'm Sophia. Thank you for coming. I am a Pakistani woman. That's okay. I'm not that excited about it either. That's the appropriate response. My parents came from Karachi, Pakistan to Chicago right here in the 1970s as working class immigrants in search of opportunities. And in order to do that, they had to leave behind their parents, their communities, their families, their support systems, everything they were familiar with. So naturally, when they got here, they felt pretty lonely. But they're smart people. They thought, we know how to fix that. Let's make some babies. Their firstborn was a son. Alhamdulillah, a blessing. And their second child was a daughter. Ugh, alhamdulillah, okay, whatever. And with 2 babies came the crushing realization that raising children in America is what? Very expensive. So they both had to work a lot. My father was already bussing tables. My mother took a job as a pharmacy technician at Cook County Hospital. And they worked all the hours, and they were frugal. No indulgences. Okay, that meant no babysitters, no after-school activities, no summer camps. Those things cost money. You know what didn't cost money? 3 to 5 channels of network television. These days, we poo-poo screen time for kids. But back then, the television was free childcare. So what all this means is that I grew up as a Generation X latchkey kid. Latchkey kids, if you're not aware, latchkey kids refer to children who wore their house keys on strings around their necks so that they could come home after school and let themselves into the homes while their parents were still at work. Today, we would call that neglect. But things were different back in the late 1900s. And yes, I'm a Pakistani woman now, but as a child, I was a Pakistani girl. And the word for girl in Urdu is larki, which made me a latchkey larki. Welcome to the show. Now, being a Pakistani girl and a latchkey kid was a peculiar combination, okay? Because on the one hand, my parents wanted me to be very Pakistani, which to a little larky felt like constantly being told all the things that I was not allowed to do, right? Like wear a tank top, or go to school dances, or eat a McDonald's Happy Meal. No, the only thing I was allowed to eat at McDonald's was the halal filet o fish. And that, my friends, is a sad meal. But on the other hand, my parents were away at work most of the time, and my brother and I were left completely unsupervised. Okay, we could have walked out that door at any time and done anything. Drugs, crime, a Happy Meal in a tank top. But we didn't do any of that. We stayed inside the home, which made us look like good, obedient Pakistani children. But the real reason we stayed home was because that's how good the TV was. Right? And I watched a lot of TV, maybe even all the TV. You could do that back then. There were only 3 to 5 channels. I watched cartoons. Come on in. I watched game shows. I absolutely idolized WGN celebrities like Bozo the Clown and Tom Skilling. Love that guy. But my absolute favorite thing to watch were the situational comedies. Yes, the good old sitcoms, right? And not only the shows from the 80s and 90s when I was growing up, but also all the shows from the 70s, the 60s, and the 50s. And some of these shows should not have been super relatable to a little Pakistani larky in Chicago, right? We had shows like, oh, I Dream of Jeannie, okay? This is a show about an astronaut who rescues a sexy genie from a bottle, and then he falls in love with her. And then she starts calling him master and goes to live with him in the human world, but she doesn't understand the social cues, and obviously hijinks ensue, okay? Or Gilligan's Island, a show about a ragtag group of 7 people on a boat who get shipwrecked in the South Pacific, and obviously hijinks ensue. Or Three's Company, okay? A horny bachelor pretends to be gay so that he can share an apartment and be horny with 2 beautiful young women on a beach in California, and obviously hijinks ensue, all right? This was not the most halal entertainment for little Sophia. There were so many tank tops. But I loved those shows so much. I loved those shows and so many more. Oh, which ones? Oh, thank you so much for asking. Oh no, where did that thing go? What happened to the stand that was over here? Okay, I had a prop. It's missing. Okay. Oh no, what shows did I love? Thank you so much for asking. I watched hours upon hours of I Love Lucy, The Honeymooners, Leave It to Beaver, The Beverly Hillbillies, The Munsters, Get Smart, Batman, The Addams Family, Bewitched, The Little Rascals, The Three Stooges, Green Acres, MASH, All in the Family, The Brady Bunch, Happy Days, in the same universe as Laverne and Shirley and Mork and Mindy, The Jeffersons, Taxi, Sanford and Son, Good Times, What's Happening, The Partridge Family, Welcome Back, Kotter, The Odd Couple, Different Strokes, Family Ties, Bridesmaids, Mr. Belvedere, Who's the Boss? Night Court, Golden Girls, Silver Spoons, Full House, Family Matters, which spun off from Perfect Strangers, Coach, Charles in Charge of Our Days and Our Nights and Our Wrongs and Our Rights, Just the 10 of us, Punky Brewster, Give Me a Break, Seinfeld, Friends, Frasier, Home Improvement, Roseanne, Married with Children, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, The Wonder Years, Everybody Loves Raymond, Mad About You, The Nanny, Step by Step, Boy Meets World, Martin, Coach, Wings, Sister. There's more. Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Blossom, Doogie Howser, MD, Living Single, and then The Simpsons came out, and I was so stressed. You guys remember? Because The Simpsons came out, and it aired on Thursday nights at the same time as my most cherished, most beloved, most favorite, The Cosby Show. I know, but little Sophia didn't know that. We didn't know. And so while my parents were off working hard at their jobs, doing the best they could, these TV shows were not only babysitting little Sophia, but they were also teaching me a lot about how to exist in the world. They taught me, for example, to always be vigilant about the ever-present dangers of quicksand. That stuff was everywhere back then. All the more reason to stay home and watch TV. They taught me that if I wanted to have a private conversation, all I had to do was take 3 steps this way and be completely out of earshot. Right? This side of the audience is much cooler. Don't worry, they can't hear us over here. And they taught me that to be a good kid in America, all I had to do was get good grades and never ever do anything that would make a teacher call my parents. Okay? Oh, a call home from school was scarier than quicksand. Right? It even stressed me out when it happened on TV. If Claire Huxtable got a call home from school, ooh, Vanessa better hide. And you know it's Vanessa too. So I did my best to avoid those calls, but it wasn't always easy to stay out of trouble. In middle school, we had a teacher named Mrs. Schreiber. She was an older lady with a crown of poofy white hair, like a golden girl, but she wasn't cute and sassy like a golden girl. She was intense like a Marine, because she was a Marine. And so were her parents, her husband, and her children. Yeah, Mrs. Schreiber was hardcore Marine Corps. And how do I know all that? Because she never stopped talking about it. Her body was petite, but her presence was frightening. Okay, her skin was leathery, and her face was stern. She was, in a word, grizzled, right? Like Mrs. Schreiber had seen some shit. And when she looked at you, you could just feel in your bones that she had killed a man or two, and she wouldn't hesitate to do it again, even in public school, junior high. Every year, Mrs. Schreiber made all of her students memorize the complete list of helping and being verbs in the form of a military chant. It went like this. Be is, am, are, was, were, been, have, has, had, do, does, did, may, might, can, could, should, would, shall, will, must, being. I did not learn that for this show. Every single one of us still remembers that chant because we were and continue to be terrified of Mrs. Schreiber, okay? One time when I had Mrs. Schreiber, I went to school after an Eid holiday with beautiful, intricate henna designs on my hands. Mrs. Schreiber called me to the front of the class, in front of everyone, and took my hands in hers and turned my little palms face up. Then she tightened her grip around my wrists and leaned in and brought her leathery, grizzled face right down in front of mine. And she said, "Young lady, we do not draw on our hands." And all I could think was, I bet she's killed a man for less. And if she kills me right now, there's definitely going to be a call home from school. She didn't call my parents, but that was the first time that little Sophia understood that something from my home culture could get me in trouble. So I made a mental note right then. I said, be less Pakistani at school, be more American. Easy, piece of cake. I knew exactly how to do that. I just had to be more like the people on the TV shows, right? So I started paying more attention. And the next day I went home from school and I got straight to my usual after-school routine, my favorite thing, eating Little Debbie snack cakes while doing homework in front of the television. I happened to be watching a little show called Roseanne. I know, but little Sophia didn't know back then, right? We didn't know. And I'm watching Roseanne, and the scene comes on where Roseanne's sarcastic teenage daughter, Darlene, says to a group of adults, she says, "Bite me." And then Darlene laughs, and then the adults laugh, and then the laugh track laughs. Everybody's laughing. Yeah, so guess who went to school the next day and said, "Bite me," to a group of adults? Yes, and there were no laughs. And once again, I was left pleading with the universe, please, no phone calls home about this. Try as I might, it was hard to avoid trouble at school completely, because little Sophia was caught between two cultures and she was just confused about everything all the time. So I decided to focus on the grades. I buckled down on studying, and I decided not to speak to any adults at school ever again. And the studying was the easy part, okay? Math test, A+. Spelling bee, first place, obviously. But our school also sometimes gave us these weird assignments, things that couldn't be tackled with rote learning. Like in second grade, we had to make a family tree. I didn't know my grandparents. My parents didn't know their grandparents. And I guess second grade was too early for conversations about geopolitical generational trauma. And I learned that year that the more question marks you put on a family tree, the lower the grade you get. My family tree had more question marks than a Riddler costume, C+. And then in fourth grade, we had a 50s day, and we all had to go to school dressed as a greaser or a pink lady. And I ran home and I said, Ummi, we have to buy something called a poodle skirt. And my mother said, Astaghfirullah, skirts are haram and dogs are haram, and I'm not paying money for that. So I went to school dressed as a greaser, B-. Every year there was something that I just couldn't study for. And now we're in the 6th grade. And the big weirdo project in the 6th grade is a solo performance on a stage in front of a giant auditorium full of teachers and parents. Every student had to select a song and then get on the stage alone and recite the lyrics to that song as a poem. And this whole project was very creatively titled Song Poem. To this day, I don't know what the purpose of Song Poem was, okay? Was it an introduction to public speaking? Maybe. Was it an early exposure to deep feelings of shame, anxiety, and regret? Yes, definitely. But Song Poem was a big deal, okay? All the teachers had to approve every student's song choice well in advance. And then they had us practice for weeks and weeks before the performance, okay? Step 1, choose a song. Sounds easy, right? Not for little Sophia. You see, little Sophia was not the worldly, cultured, musically savvy big Sophia you see before you today. Little Sophia was still a sheltered child of Pakistani immigrants who were not playing classic rock hits around the house. Of course, I knew music. I had been in the grocery store. I had been in the car. But they asked me to choose a song, and my brain went blank. And you got to remember, this was like 35 years ago. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have smartphones. I couldn't go to YouTube or Spotify. And we didn't have cable at home. I couldn't turn on MTV or VH1. I had only my little Sophia brain, and inside there was nothing. Okay? Well, nothing except the constant obsessive longing for a Happy Meal and a tank top. And every day, the other kids were coming to school and getting their song choices approved. And every day they said, Sophia, what's your song? And every day I said, what is my song? Why can't I think of a song? I need a song. Song. Does that word sound funny to you? Oh my God, what even is a song? I was panicking. By 6th grade, I had straight A's. My parents loved me. I could not afford to fail something called song poem, okay? I could not have that on my permanent record. But then I realized something. I did know some songs because I have a big brother and I adored him and I liked everything he liked. And what he liked was early 90s hip hop. Which in the early 90s we just called hip hop. So with just a few days left before the deadline, I chose a song from my brother's collection. I copied down the lyrics from the liner notes that came in the cassette tape, that little really thick folded booklet, and I took it to school. This was a song by the esteemed DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. It was a song called Who Stole My Car?
Now we're joking, fun and games are chill, but this isn't funny, y'all. This is straight up ill. Now there's a limit to humor, and this is going too far. I ain't laughing no more, y'all. Now who stole my car?
The song has a thrilling narrative. Okay? The car gets stolen. These two knuckleheads go on an adventure to find the car, and guess what ensues? Hijinks. Exactly. A+. And you already know how I feel about hijinks, right? Like, who doesn't love hijinks? Mrs. Schreiber. That's who. She rejected the song immediately. She told me that rap music was not allowed for song poem because, in her words, rap songs are already too much like poetry. Wait, hold on. What? Aren't all song lyrics like poetry? Obviously, I still don't understand the objective of this assignment. Can't I just do an extra math test instead? I'm really into the transitive property these days. But Mrs. Schreiber said, no math test and no rap songs. And just like that, I was back in the panic. Okay, I was running out of time. I didn't know what to do. I could try asking my parents for help, but the only thing they played around the house was the occasional Bollywood music video on a grainy public access television station or Quran recitation tapes. And if Mrs. Schreiber didn't like rap music, I'm pretty sure she wasn't going to approve Bollywood or the Holy Quran. At first, I was afraid. I was petrified. Why did I think of that song? I was petrified that I was going to fail song poem and then fail the 6th grade, and then I wouldn't get into college, and then I'd have to have an arranged marriage at 17, and then everyone would forget how good I was at math. But then I remembered something else. There was one other category of songs that I did know, because I was a latchkey larky. Welcome to the show. I was a latchkey larky, and I was being raised by television sitcoms. And all of those sitcoms had theme songs. And guess what, little Sophia? Theme songs are songs, right? Theme songs were more important back then. We couldn't binge watch entire seasons of shows the way we do now. We needed that theme song to remind us of the premise of the show before every episode. Here's the story of a lovely lady. Yes, thank you. Participation point. The Brady Bunch, right? We all know it. Come listen to the story about a man named Jed. This one's a little harder. A poor mountaineer barely kept his family fed. That's the Beverly Hillbillies. You got to know their background, how they became rich. Okay, that one was harder. I'll give you that. Everyone's going to know this next one, I promise. Sunday, Monday. Happy days indeed. Yes, happy days. See, all of those songs, all of those shows had theme songs, and I knew every one of them, and so did some, but not all of you. So I chose one that spoke to me, one that really spoke to me. I scribbled down the lyrics, even the extra verses from the closing credits of the show. And I went to school and handed it to Mrs. Schreiber on the final day for submissions. Mrs. Schreiber took that paper from my hands. She looked at the lyrics, then she looked right down at me. And I held my breath. She looked at the lyrics again. She looked at me again. And then she said, fine. Oh, thank goodness. Exhale. That reluctant fine was the single greatest word I'd ever heard in my entire little life. Okay, that fine means that maybe I won't fail song poem. That fine means maybe I can still go to college. Maybe I can still be a good American kid. So then we got to work, turning our songs into sonnets for some reason that I still don't understand. But we did it, and we practiced for many weeks. And on the day of the performance, they told us we had to dress up, which is another thing that little Sophia had no idea how to do. Okay, I'd never left the house much. I only knew how to dress for watching TV and doing homework. So I went into my mother's closet. My mother also, by the way, not a very fashionable lady. I went into my mother's closet. I chose an oversized floral blazer. It came down to my shins. It had shoulder pads out to here, and I thought, this will have to do. Now, we all remember, well, actually, maybe some of us remember the golden #1 fashion rule of the 1990s. The bigger the shoulder pads, the fancier the outfit, all right? The normal width of human shoulders was just too casual. Wouldn't have done. So now it's the performance. We're there. We're in the auditorium. It is jam-packed, huge auditorium, every seat full of teachers and parents. Not mine, because they're away at work doing the best they can, but otherwise a big, scary room of big, scary adults. Okay, and one by one, each sixth grader takes the stage and recites these song words that are all like full of emotion and intensity and anguish and feeling. Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. Did you ever know that you're my hero? I believe the children are our future. And now the most popular girl in the sixth grade walks onto the stage. Not only is she the most popular, she's also the most accomplished, the most athletic, the prettiest. She's the Marsha Brady of our class. Okay, and she's so perfect, she's so beloved that she probably has a jealous middle sister named Jan. Marsha Brady, our Marsha Brady's on stage, and she is dressed head to toe in a appropriately sized, perfect, matching red, white, and blue outfit. Okay, sparkly shoes, striped socks, pleated skirt, sequined vest, and shiny, beautiful red, white, and blue ribbons in her perfect, beautiful, perfectly hairsprayed hair. And a respectful hush falls over the audience. It was the fall of 1990, and we were a few months into the first Gulf War, which back then was just called the Gulf War. We didn't know there would be sequels. Plural. Oh no, too soon? Okay. U.S. troops were deployed in the Middle East, and a surge of patriotism had taken over in America. And Marsha Brady's on stage, and she begins to recite the lyrics of a song that I should have thought of myself, because this song was playing everywhere, in every grocery store, in every gas station, on every radio station, every single day. There's a song the song is by a country singer named Lee Greenwood. And then some of you might know him from his more recent release, the 2021 Lee Greenwood Bible, which I suspect he did not write completely by himself. The song is called God Bless the USA. And Marsha Brady is on stage, and she is reciting the lyrics with all the confidence. Stay with me. With all the confidence of the most popular, most accomplished, most athletic, most perfect, most prettiest girl in the 6th grade. And when she gets to the chorus, she puts her hand on her heart. She turns ever so slightly toward the flag. And she says, and I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died and gave that right to me. Now the room is pin drop silent. Everybody is captivated. And I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, because there ain't no doubt I love this land. And then her voice cracks and a single teardrop rolls down her cheek. God bless the USA. And then there is a thunderous applause in the room, okay? And a standing ovation and not a dry eye in the auditorium. The grown-ups are sobbing. They're hugging each other. They're passing out tissues. And who's in the wings? Waiting to go up next. Little Sophia. In her mother's shoulder. And I'm nervous. I'm really nervous, but I'm also a little bit encouraged by what's just happened on the stage. Because if all these adults liked God Bless the USA that much, they are going to love my song choice. My song choice is also very patriotic. My song choice comes from watching 30 hours of television a week, and what is more American than that? Shuffle up to the microphone. I look out at the audience. People are still wiping the tears from their faces. I take a deep breath. And with all the drama, bravado, and Shakespearean cadence that I can muster, I begin to recite. Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale. A tale of a fateful trip. That started from this tropic port. Aboard this tiny ship, the mate was a mighty sailing man, the skipper, brave and sure. 5 passengers set sail that day on a 3-hour tour. A 3-hour tour! Yes, what you're thinking is true. Little Sophia followed God Bless the USA with the Gilligan's Island theme song. And then I stood there, proud of myself, waiting for my standing ovation, which didn't come. No, none of the adults in that auditorium stood for Little Sophia. Gilligan's Island ran for 3 seasons. And in that time, Gilligan, the skipper, the millionaire and his wife, the movie star, the professor, and Marianne never made it off that island. Oh, they tried many times with the limited resources that they had. They burned logs in the shape of an SOS. They built rafts out of bamboo. They repaired the ship's radio with coconuts like every other episode. But every attempt was foiled. And they always ended up back on that island. Until eventually, in a 1978 made-for-television movie, there's a tsunami coming. And so the castaways make a raft out of their tents and they sail off into the ocean. But then Gilligan does some hijinks because obviously, and he accidentally sets the raft on fire. And then the United States Coast Guard sees the fire and then spots the castaways and then tows them to Hawaii and they are rescued. And they even get a letter from Jimmy Carter. And they finally go home 15 years after the shipwreck. Those castaways, they tried and they flailed and they faltered and they tried again until they accidentally succeeded. Little Sophia stood alone on that stage, having tried her best with the limited resources that she had. And if I could go to her in that moment and say anything, I would say, first of all, hey, little Sophia, I love the blazer. It's very fancy. You did a great job. And also, it's okay to falter, and it's okay to flail. Flailing is kind of awesome. Flailing will get you some life experiences that are so unique, so bizarre, so meaningful, so interesting, so wonderful. Flailing will teach you important lessons and make you who you are. So just keep trying, little Sophia, and keep flailing and keep trying again. And do all the hijinks. And eventually, you'll figure things out. Oh, it might take 15 years and it might be by accident and there might be fire involved, but it counts. It counts. Success is success. And someday, little Sophia, someday you will get your standing ovation. Someday, perhaps a Saturday afternoon at the Looking Glass Theater in downtown Chicago, little Sophia, someday you will get your standing ovation. Someday. Aha! Oh my God, she did it! She did it! Thank you so much. She did it. Thank you. You guys did a great job. Before I run out of here, I just want to say a big thank you to the Looking Glass Theater today, AAAC and the Evolution Festival, to Charlie up here and Amanda up there, and Grace, who's helping us in the room, to Becca, and to my wonderful, talented, hilarious, very good friend and director, Becky O'Donoghue. Thank you so much for giving me your time and listening to my story.
The weather started getting rough, the tiny ship was tossed, if not for the courage of the fearless crew of Minnow.
Amazing. So that was Sophia. Wasn't that amazing? So for those of you who came in during Sophia's performance, I just want to say welcome to the Evolution Asian American Arts Festival, produced by AAAC, which is the Asian American Arts of Chicago. And our host for the evening, or sorry, not evening, hello, day and evening, and then tomorrow day and evening as well, is Looking Glass Theater, where you're at. I'm Becca, I'm your MC. And yeah, so just so you know, the AAAC is a not-for-profit organization. So every donation that you make to us supports Asian American creativity and excellence. So thank you for coming out today. We're going to continue the spoken word showcase with another great performance by Randy Kim. Now, Randy Kim is a queer Viet-Khmer American and is the creator and host of his award-winning podcast, the Banh Mi Chronicles. There's a couple of trigger warnings for the show, just so you're aware and you can take care of yourself as you need to. The trigger warning, content warning is a story of grief, suicidal ideation and attempt, and psychiatric hospitalization. So let's give a nice warm welcome to Randy Kim.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being here today. So this is the first time I've actually put this together, and it's still a work in progress, so bear with me. So it was the beginning of June 2024, and I was driving one day. My cousin calls me. I pick up, and I was getting a call from her, and I was like, oh, this is unusual. And she said, Randy, I think you need to talk to Andy. I said, for what? What's going on? She said, I think you need to talk to your brother. I think he has something to say to you. I was confused. I said, okay, I'll call you back. Just give me a minute. So I pulled over to the Amazon store parking lot. And I called Andy. He picks up, clears his throat, his voice still hoarse. Hey, what's up? He said, well, Pat wanted me to call you. Is everything okay? He stopped, stood silent for a moment and said, it's not good. It's not good. The doctors told me that I have kidney failure and that I'm going to need a kidney transplant. The wait list is 7.5 years in Florida. I was stunned. I didn't know what to say. But the first thing I said was, so does that mean I'm gonna have to bury you? Does that mean that you're not gonna outlive our parents? What are they gonna say? Andy stopped, snapped at me, said, just stop it. Just stop. I'm gonna be okay. I said, Andy, but you're not gonna be okay. This is serious. I said, I know. And he said, I know. I don't remember what happened after that, but I was left so shaken to the point that I stood in the parking lot in my car for an hour before I would go back home. This was just on top of so many other things. The situation with my brother's mortality was now in test. And it was already piling on to what was already a very difficult spring for me. I was already starting to have panic attacks at work. I was starting to feel the imposter syndrome of not being good enough. I had this racing thoughts of not being a good person, that I deserved to be unloved. And now with my brother's situation, I thought about, well, I'm already taking care of my parents. They're elderly and disabled. Now I got Annie to worry about. And I felt like, once again, I had to be the strong one for the family. So a couple of weeks later, we flew down to Florida to see him. We drove over to his place in Tallahassee. And going into his apartment, there were stacks of boxes of dialysis solutions. He was doing his dialysis at home, which we thought was not the best idea, but Andy insisted. And they were all over the kitchen. They were in the living room. And my mom just stood there, looked, stayed silent for a minute, and started choking up and said, Andy, please go home. We need you home. Andy said, no, I am not going home. I'm staying here. I butted in. I said, Andy, but who's going to take care of you? Don't worry about it. I got this. You're not going to take care of me. I thought about Andy for a long time because Andy, his twin brother Tony, and I, we had a very difficult relationship for years. Andy, the most, because growing up, he struggled in school. My dad would be hard on him, be so challenging to him. And sometimes I felt like I was also taking out my aggression on Andy, to the point where over the years, he always felt like he was not the smartest, he was not the good looking one, he was not anything to all of us. And so I felt that over the years, he just didn't trust us and he wanted to keep things to himself. So I understood why he resisted, but I also knew that time was running out. Getting back, my mental health problems started piling on and on. I started losing sleep. I started getting paranoid. I started believing that people really do not like me. I started feeling like I was a failure. I felt like I was gonna get fired from my job. Every one-on-one, I would start sweating and I would have to leave and go to the lounge area and start crying. And then on August 12th of that year, I decided that I just couldn't do this anymore. I decided to just leave the house. I drove to a nearby park and I grabbed bottles of pills with me. And as I made my way to the park, I started group texting to 10 of my closest friends, and then having a separate text to my brother Tony. And in both texts, I apologized. I said, I'm really sorry. I don't think I can do this. I hope you'll forgive me one day. This world was too much for me. And as soon as I hit send, my phone just started blaring. It started blasting, and I just started swallowing the pills. And I was very much not thinking about who was calling me. I just noticed that I was just ignoring everyone. I was determined to be done. And I get a message from Tony, says, call me now. And I decided to talk to Tony because I felt maybe, just maybe, I could actually let him know how I feel. And I just remembered between sobs and being hysterical, I told him, I'm tired of being the strong one. I'm tired of having to feel like I'm carrying everything. I'm tired of feeling lonely. And sooner and later, the police, the firefighters, and the ambulance came by. They took me on a stretcher, took me into an emergency room. I was shaken. I see a missed call from my mom. And I thought, God damn it. Why didn't I just complete this? And then I realized the sadness from my friends and my brother Tony. And I thought, wow, I really ruined it for them. I'm ashamed of myself. And not long after, I was sent to a psychiatric unit to stay for a week. And in that week, I was away, secluded away from the outside world. I had a room but no clocks. I had a view of the outside, which led to another building. I didn't have my phone with me. But as I was going through the intensive therapy and having to isolate myself, I began to have conversations with my brothers, both. And we started talking about our traumas. We started apologizing to each other. We started talking about how much we love each other. And this was the first time in so many years that we started having a real conversation, and not one that just felt so distant and frozen. And as I was leaving the hospital, I was going through the intensive outpatient therapy. I was doing the necessary work to rehabilitate. I was going on new medication. I was doing therapy. My life was just a therapy in session every day. But in the meantime, Andy's health began to worsen. There were trips to the hospital. My cousin would call me saying, well, Andy's not able to move. He's not able to walk. I had to give Andy a shower. My cousin actually had to wipe his ass at one point. So I was becoming very scared. Like I said, Andy, what's going on? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you getting onto a new diet? He's like, well, yeah, don't worry about it. The doctor said I could eat whatever I want. And it's like, well, bullshit. Like, you obviously you can't be eating this because you're in the hospital again. And Andy said, you know, why don't you just shut the fuck up, Randy? Just stop it, okay? And I said, okay, you know what? Okay, that's fine. And I thought, there's no getting through him. And I thought for the longest time, Andy felt like he had something to prove on his, he had something to prove. He had a chip on his shoulder. He was going through, he was going through making sure that he got the best job. Even though he didn't graduate from college, he decided that he was going to make sure that he was going to excel more than me and Tony. He was traveling to work each week to a different city, but he was also really not taking care of himself. He was drinking caffeinated drinks 2 or 3 times a day. He was eating McDonald's. He was eating steak dinners. He was traveling anywhere he can go and just started eating out. Never cooked at home. And I knew that this was not going to end well. I was ready to go on my trip to Vietnam and Cambodia. And in Vietnam and Cambodia, this is like the ancestral homeland. And this was a trip that I've been working on for months, maybe even years, actually. And he was starting to get to the point where his ER stays started to be days, now weeks. And I'm like, this is not good. So I said, Andy, I think I'm gonna cancel this trip. I'm gonna postpone this because I don't know if I can trust myself to go on this trip while you're in the hospital. And Andy said, okay. So when I was at work, and he stops, he calls me, and I pick up, and he said, Randy, you need to go on this trip. I'm telling you, you need to go on this trip. I said, but Andy, like, I'm scared. I can't let you go like this. And he said, trust me, I'll be fine. So I told him, well, one thing, I need to visit you before I go on my trip. We're about a week away. So my family and I flew down. We were at his hospital. We were surrounding him. Andy wouldn't look at us. He would, every time I would try to make eye contact with him, he would go the opposite direction. And when I would try, or my mom and I tried to talk to him, he would turn the opposite way. And then eventually I caught him. I saw tears in his eyes, the sadness, the realness of his mortality was coming to life. And here he was, knowing that he has nothing to hide anymore, and that we're all trying to figure out what will happen to him. Later that night, when I got home, Andy and I would call, we would talk for a moment, and Andy said to me, Randy, I just want you to know I'm not dying. I said, Andy, like, what do you call all of this? You're going on these new medications, you're going on, like, you have a kidney transplant you're still waiting on, and you've been in a hospital for weeks already. He said, paused for a moment and said, Randy, I'm not dying. Okay. And then Tony and I sat in his bedside, and he said to us, if anything happens, I want my ashes scattered at Cannon Beach, Oregon. That's my favorite place. I said, okay, Andy, that's fine. So I went on my trip a week later in Vietnam, Cambodia. I was having the time of my life. I was riding my bicycle in dark, rainy Vietnam traffic. And if you remember, like, if you stop signs and traffic lights are just a suggestion, so you just have to cross into the street and let them pass you. So I was riding my bike in pouring rain, going hikes, meeting new people, having the time of my life. And for the first time, I felt alive, for the first time in so long. And on New Year's Eve, I was on the rooftop in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, dancing to Cambodian music, celebrating that I'm still here, because only 4 or 5 months before that, I was almost gone. And I thought, wow, this is a good way to celebrate, and I feel alive again. But meanwhile, Andy was still in the hospital. He had already missed Thanksgiving, Christmas, and now New Year's. But as I flew back home later that week, he writes a Facebook message and says, I am gonna be out of the hospital. I'm excited to come back. I want my life again. I'm gonna have my life back again. Things are gonna be great. Thank you so much for, your concerns. And then, as I was dealing with jet lag, I was dealing with the stress of work once again. And I called Andy that week. And I said, Andy, there's a lot of things happening at work right now. New executive director's gonna leave. One of my directors just left. We're gonna, I have to now start handling this big gala before my executive director leaves. And all of a sudden, the anxiety started to kick in. Here we go again. I'm nervous. I don't know what to do. And I feel like I'm gonna go back to where I was last year. But Andy said to me, I think you really need to change your job. I think you need to quit. I said, but Andy, I don't want to quit. I just started. I don't want to give up too soon. And he said to me, trust me, it's fine. You'll be fine. I know it. A couple of days have passed and I hadn't talked to Andy in a while. But when I was coming home one night, I would hear my mom talking to Andy. This was like a nightly ritual she would have with him. And I came upstairs. Next morning, his lifeline alert comes on. It's fine because it shows that he's awake, he's moving around. A couple hours later, as I was about to go on lunch, my mom asked me, well, did you talk to Andy? I said, well, not yet, I'm gonna call him. So I get on my phone and call him, no answer, and I'm thinking, this is fine, this is typical, like he tends to not answer his phone. It would take him forever to get back. A couple hours later, as I was winding down the day, I was about to shut my laptop and I got a phone call from my cousin's daughter, Victoria, and she said, Andy's gone. And I said, what? You gotta be kidding me. This can't be it. This can't be it. Like, I just talked to him a couple of days ago. What just happened? What just happened? Why is he can't be gone. So as the days would lead, I don't remember other than the fact that I had to work on the funeral. I had to work with my brother Tony to figure out the logistics, to be there for my parents who were deeply in grief. And, along the lines, we started finding more things about him. Well, Andy's last meal was a McDonald's meal, and then also a meal from Wawa's. If you know, Wawa's is like a gas station food. So he indulged, and it's like, here we go again. Like, I guess he got what he wanted. He ate what he wanted. And his car was double parked outside his apartment. His keys and his wallet went missing. And I'm like, wow, Andy really left us something there. This guy had lived such a chaotic life. And I guess this is par for the course. And then my brother, Tony, and I were trying to figure out, well, how do we get into his email or to like any passwords? And then Tony was like, well, maybe I should try the password that I use. And I'm like, well, really, is it possible? Because you and Andy were not close for a long time. Tony put out his own password, and it worked. So twins do read minds, much to his disagreement. During the funeral, I would see his body lying peacefully in the casket. No more of him snoring, no more of him being very groggy. I was disassociating the entire funeral. And then I went back to the hotel. I decided to play something because after seeing him being quiet for the entire period, I just want to hear his voice. One last time. I listened to the voicemail that was dated August 12th, 2024. He said, Randy, I know you're not going to get this message, but I want you to know I don't want you to feel alone. I just want to let you know I love you and that I'm always here for you. And if there's anything you need, I'll hear from you on the other side. I sat there. At least I know that his voice felt alive to me that day when he was peacefully asleep. For weeks, the grief kept compounding. I started having trouble sleeping. I would start having troubles working. I would start crying in the middle of work. I would be reminded of places that I would go to that he used to work at. I would be on certain streets and all of a sudden certain childhood memories come alive. And then anytime I see a blue Subaru Forester, my heart would just stop. And after And after I realized that the next 2 months became so unbearable, I decided I'm gonna walk away from my work. I'm done. I felt like Andy was right all along. He knew that I needed to change, and I was gonna honor that. And I wish I could tell him that he was right. So I spent that time that summer trying to recalibrate, trying to finally grieve. And then when they got his ashes, my mom was able to greet him. Welcome home, Andy. I miss you so much. And then I took him on to his final trip to my brother's place, where he lived in the north side. My family and I would go to Uptown each weekend, and I was taking that same path. I was talking to Andy the entire trip. I said, do you remember this building? Do you remember what we used to do when we used to eat Banh Mi by the beach? And then when I was ready to go for Oregon, I took a Lyft driver, and the driver basically asked me, well, what are you going to Oregon for? I said, well, I have to scare my brother's ashes. He said, I'm sorry, because I lost my brother 4 years ago, and I have not been the same since. So I sat listening quietly as he was telling his own story, sharing his own grief with me. And after I got to the TSA, I handed them the urn, the plastic urn, and then the TSA gave it back to me and said, my condolences. So we arrived to the airport, and in the airport, we drove out to Cannon Beach. It was a beautiful place. If you have ever seen the Goonies, that's where it took place. It was chilly, and he was never into cold weather and hot weather, but it was really perfect for him. He talked about how much he loved that place. And so when we scattered his ashes, Tony especially, we found a small little waterfall that would trickle down to the ocean. And I'm thinking to myself, at least his ashes will one day reach the shores of our homeland of Vietnam, and he could be with the ancestors. So grief remains a part of my living. Grief has been there with me every day. Grief has been my companion. It's not someone that I can kick out of the table. I think about the sadness, the missing moments, and I wonder, man, I just wish he was here. I wish I could talk to him. But in the end, I thought about what it meant when he encouraged me to continue living my life, to not end it while he was about to end his. I thought about the love that I have for him, and that I hope that one day he will finally realize that he will believe us when we told him that we love him. It was an honor to be his big brother. Thank you. I love you, Andy. And thank you so much. And also, you can follow me here. You can also use the scan code. I also take donations too if you'd like. But yeah, feel free to follow me and follow my podcast. And thank you so much for being present. And I hope that you're very gentle to yourselves today. Thank you.
That was so moving. So now we're going to keep moving right along to our final performance for the spoken word showcase. We have Lisa Lowe coming up, who is a poet, and Lisa is an author of several works and is the recipient of the 2023 Pushcart Prize and the 2020 Gulf Coast Nonfiction Prize. So give a nice warm welcome to Lisa Lowe.
Hi everyone, can everyone hear me okay? Yes. All right, so great to be here. Thank you so much to Asian American Arts Chicago. Thank you to Looking Glass, this is so beautiful. Thank you to Randy and Sophia for their amazing performances. So grateful to be here as well. My book just came out last month, so I'll be reading from this. They're not song poems, but sorry, it's a little bit quick. All right, I'm gonna begin with a poem about writing. It's called Ars Poetica. For years, I used the body of my younger self as proof racism exists. I placed her into the blank space of a poem as if no one would see her. She let me arrange her like that, sitting on her hands, thigh section to a folding chair. What audience doesn't want to see a girl sweat? She glistened like evidence, shown from all angles. I wouldn't let her friends into the poem. I left a box of tissues outside the frame. I gave her the open ceiling of a poem through which she could be looked at as long as you want. This next poem is an erasure. So if you're not familiar, it's like when you take a piece of text and then you just like print out stuff that you want to. And my text that I chose is a tweet from comedian Jamie Illis. You might know him. He said some bad things on the internet, and then he was found out. So he tweeted a non-apology, and I erased it 9 times, so that's why it's called 9 apologies. 1, if you're actually offended by anything I've said, my intention is never to hurt anyone, but I am trying to be the best comedian I can be, and sometimes that requires risks. 2, I'm a comedian who pushes boundaries. I sometimes miss. If you go through my 10 years of comedy, most of it bad, you're gonna find a lot of bad misses. I'm happy to apologize to anyone who's actually anything. I've never hurt anyone, but I am trying to be the best comedian. Sometimes that requires risks. 3, I'm a comedian who pushes boundaries. I sometimes miss. If you find a lot of misses, I'm happy to apologize. I've said I am, I can, sometimes. 4, I push boundaries. My bad. I'm anyone I can be. 5, I'm a comedian. Sometimes you're going to be offended. 6, I'm actually I, but I am I. 7, who am I? I am me. 8, I apologize to my hurt. 9, you're going to apologize, actually. He still is working, so. All right, recurring dreams of marrying my childhood crushes from the Chinese Bible Church of Maryland. I can't wait for one to trace my eyebrows like he did in 9th grade, holding my temples in his hands. The other could read my poetry again, call me on the landline, and swear I'm a genius. I step into the middle of my gown, imagining their confessions of love while I prepare my response. I'll think about it. Crush being generous. Youth group guys I chatted past my bedtime, but feared would lead to my social standing. They weren't the crushes to disclose at sleepovers, but the sporty ones I wanted to hold hands with during prayer circles, fixating on the snaps of tearaway pants, or the musical one on stage singing about God, not me. Even he seemed too athletic to have anything to do with me. I liked eyebrow guide, poem reader privately, basking in the glow of my family computer. I don't want to miss a thing, grows incrementally louder in a dream like a boy singing in my ear at homecoming. The overgrown buzz cut, the potential appearance of a cargo vest doesn't bother me here. I ascend the stairs to the baptism tub, but it all cuts out before anything else happens. Ben wakes up to find me deep in a Facebook search, and I rub his eyebrows for good measure. All week, I'm obsessed with the out-of-date profiles, like I deserve a recent photo or two, and the tension I'm remembering maybe more glowingly than I should. These days, the ones I classified as awkward Asian guys seem more charming than ever, and I reflect on my life trajectory as if to atone for my current lack of Asian male friends. I close Facebook, brush my teeth, and fight the urge to imagine the guys now have something of mine that they're keeping from me. Anybody dream about people that they don't want to be dreaming about? To maxi pads. I strap a maxi pad to my underwear for old time's sake, relish the cushion, the sound of adhesive, wings slip down, plastic I crumple into the trash can like an intricate paper flower. As a child, I mastered the muffling of sounds, synced to other flushing toilets. I could disappear in a stall rehearsing the insertion of a tampon. My body spiraled open like a dilating door. I could shield a pad in my hand as if it never existed. I didn't dare lie to others I wasn't putting something inside me, so I kept quiet instead, studying my crotch for the beginning signs of a leak. Like any good girl, I became good at watching myself. All right, I'll read a couple about my mom. I was like, why are you always writing about me? Dollhouse. The doctor asks if I am pregnant. I want to ask her how a mother becomes a child, how a child drags around all her tiny furniture. Each time I look into my mother's house, she is not where I left her. If memory is a house, and it begins with a quote from a poem by Isan. At the top of the castle, I tie a heavy stone to my memory and hurl it as far as I can. How I know you're there is papaya slit open, its black seeds even darker against the laminate. The wood-paneled room you never went to in skylight thick with winter. Upstairs, your bed pushed to one side so you could touch your face to the wall. How can I know distance the way you have or how it lodges itself in the body? Winter, which is the way slight movement is possible in a place frozen over. The way the mind loosens from the body, making the falling sounds of pine cone on snow. At the edge of my mind is a small moving thing, which could be a bird hovering over its egg circling, or a prayer tied to a stone. This is after Ali Wong. Mail order groom. I flip through a catalog of mail order grooms. I want one from a colonizing country. The whiter, the better. I want the hair and disposition of a golden retriever. I want money sprouting from his follicles like Rapunzel. I want him strong and soft as a rope of hair, like toilet paper. I want his last name changed to mine. I want to buy one, give one, another white husband for a friend. When it comes to me, I want him to kneel between my legs like he's expecting to represent his entire race. So yeah, I'm with a white guy. I have this like long piece in here that's about that topic because I have many thoughts about it, but I'll read you a few sections from it. People who look like you. The feeling of a tall white man beside you gives you power or takes from it depending on circumstance. The sun reaches him first, illuminating him so shadow casts over you. Is it warmth that you want or shade? Is this circumstance or perspective? It is important to remember whether you're partially or fully outside the shadow, it could only bob alongside you. Shade only works when you stand close enough to want it. What is the difference between shade and shadow besides a pair of running legs? A tall white man beside you makes you appear smaller than you are, so when you're without him, you feel larger, your size again. This, too, is a kind of power, shape-shifting. The superpower of a white man is the ability to wear basketball shorts at any moment, anywhere. You count the times, the places you wear basketball shorts. This looks like the beginning of a joke, but is, if you look closer, a math problem, a problem to solve. If only you can feel like a tall white man, not just his tallness beside you, you decide to practice and keep practicing this intellectual exercise. You cannot have his voice, his shoulders, the length of his arms, or the body that has been loved for centuries. There are many things you could do with this love. There are many things you already do that need effort to make look effortless. You track the proliferation of white male Asian female couples on the street, in your friend groups, on your Instagram Explore page. Haha, you think when you see one as if reacting to a bad joke. You love dumplings and imagine hosting a dumpling making party where your apartment fills with all the Asian white couple friends you know, past and present. A literary hero of yours and her husband could be the guest of honor. The tall white man, flanked by other white men who follow his instruction, peels a dumpling wrapper from the stack. Friends take turns scooping, dipping, pleating, sealing, while the rest gossip in the background like mirrors. In your mind, the gathering takes on the varnished feeling of science fiction. The trope of beautiful Asian women dating ugly white guys troubles you, but you look around the room at all your beautiful Asian girlfriends and the white men who vary in both attractiveness and social skills. Dumplings are everywhere when the room erupts in laughter at the punchline of someone's story that you missed. You automatically laugh too, like you can't help stepping into the space the world has made for you. A rite of passage for white boyfriends is learning to use chopsticks. A white man in an Asian restaurant fumbling with chopsticks is a cliche you could do without. A white man fumbling with chopsticks while telling a self-deprecating joke is a sight you could probably find in most Asian restaurants in America at any given time. But what is the difference between the white man who feels like he can and must master everything and the one who persists in learning a difficult skill? They look the same, but what you can't tell is the difference in heart or how heart is related to power. Around you, Asian couples beam under restaurant lighting. The attractive ones glance over at you, then avert their eyes from yet another tiresome chopsticks lesson. Even after a tall white man says he loves you, you know that in theory he could crush you with little effort. A white man's anger has both short-term and long-term power. Therefore, it is important to determine the ways you could crush a white man yourself in emergencies. This takes some creative thinking. While others may think this is violence, to you it is self-defense, an exit strategy, a red sign you don't unplug from the wall. And hearing your ways to crush a white man, or even that you're thinking of these ways, a white man may feel hurt, alarm, defensiveness, or anger, the very emotion that led you here. It then becomes your job to comfort him. You say, this is the distance between us, the world we live in, that you must comfort a white man while protecting yourself is another day's problem to solve. I think I'll just read one more. And I have copies with me. If anybody's interested, you can come find me. I'll be around. This poem is called Palinode, and I had been writing a lot of sad mom poems, and I read some of those earlier, so this is in response to that. Your mother enters the poem with her sadness intact. When your mother enters the poem, should she be a strict, sad, hardworking, or immigrant mother? Your mother enters the poem wearing all her animal print items at once, laughs, holding a leopard print lamp. Your mother enters the poem laughing, asks for compensation. Shouldn't she be paid for inspiring you? Your mother reads a poem and tells you she isn't an immigrant. Student visa, she corrects your language. Anywhere you could, you kept her sadness intact, despite the hazy quality of your childhood memory. Pay your mother to display her sadness across the pages of a poem. Thank you.
Wasn't it so fun? Okay, we laughed, we cried, all the good things. So thank you so much for coming out and supporting Evolution Fest. We will be going on for the rest of today and tomorrow. So up next, if you're interested, there's the theater showcase in here. So if you need to go grab some refreshments downstairs, go to the bathroom, you can do that, go down the stairs or to the elevator. And otherwise, you are released. You may go on with your day. Yeah, thank you so much.
Great job. This is good. Yeah, that was good.
Yes. Also, just so everyone's aware, you do have to take over to the conference. You all welcome to chat in the lobby like that, but I do need to move a bunch of stuff, so I'm going to kick y'all out to the lobby. Thank you. Yeah, because I need you all with the lobby place so we can send out next.
Unless you're going to be in the next show, you can just take me out.
Yeah, and I'll open the house again and let y'all back in. No problem.
Thank you. Great stuff.
Sound of